pristine than ever before. And before I get started on the topic, I want to make sure that I recognize and congratulate the officers of the Doha chapter. What they've done is nothing short of amazing in a short amount of time. I hope this is the first annual Doha Regional Conference. So, round of applause for, if we could have the chapter officers stand. Round of applause for the chapter officers. So, my topic today is the future of the accountant in business. I don't know if you knew it, but there is no future because we're all going to be replaced by robots, right? Haven't you heard? But seriously, this is a serious topic. You know, there is a revolution and a fast pace of technological change. It's almost as though we can't keep up with the pace of change. In fact, we call it digital Darwinism, where the pace of technological change is exceeding our capacity to absorb it. And so the reason this talk is referred to as a call to action is because it's up to us to increase our relevance and influence in a digital age, where bots are a part of our supply chains, where robotics process automation is a critical element of the supply chain, where blockchain and intelligent process automation are part of creating greater efficiency and effectiveness. And the question is, how do we collaborate with this technology enablement to produce greater outcomes? And the answer is pretty obvious, pretty simple. We're going to be talking about it on the panel later, but it's the call to action for us individually is all about upskilling. And you hear a lot about strategy management, you hear a lot about data science and data analytics. And when you think about the evolving role of the CFO team in industry, we have evolved. You know, mentioned that I was CFO of a major business unit at AT&T. I think it was an $18 billion operation. And at that time as CFO, I was responsible for way more than the technical accounting, the generally accepted accounting principles. I was not only responsible for closing the books and doing the internal controls, but my team was also expected to play a major role in strategy, in operations, in technology, and we were leaders of the organization. So the role of the accountant has very much evolved, and here we are on yet another milestone, another challenge to increase and enhance our skill sets in the world of data. We'll be talking about it during the presentation. Actually, I am super excited and passionate about this opportunity for us to upskill in a digital age for two reasons. One, my educational background is actually in mathematics and statistics. And number two, I actually started 40 years ago at AT&T as a data scientist. We weren't called data scientists at the time, but I was a data scientist. I was part of a group that was providing support to the rest of the company in econometrics, operations research, statistics, financial modeling, and more. So I can assure you, although some jobs will go away and are going away as we speak in our profession and in others, especially those that are more routine, repetitive, transaction-oriented, if we all commit in the ecosystem to upskilling seriously, not just talking about it, but serious upskilling, then I am very, very confident that our profession and us individually will be the stronger for it in terms of relevance and influence. So, what we'll talk about today is some key messages. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the environment, although this really is less a talk about technology than it is about what to do with it and how to enable it with competency. So it's really more of a talent talk, a competency talk, than it is a talk on what is blockchain, what is intelligent process automation, what is RPA, what is AI, et cetera, et cetera. Because there's plenty of information out in the public domain on all of these enabling technologies. And what I've often said is that you don't need to be a first mover on the technology itself, but you need to be a first mover on learning how the technology potentially could enable your organization to achieve great outcomes. You know, we live in a business environment where it is very, very challenging to sustain profitable growth, where it's difficult to achieve both purpose and profit. Geopolitics, whether it's here in the country or in the US or in China or elsewhere. Traditional and non-traditional competition, consumer expectations, and the list goes on and on. So we need to look for every possible competitive and market advantage, and technology and innovation are one of those areas. And IMA, which by the way, we are growing, we're very excited about the growth. We're actually up to about 140,000 members globally. And, but it's all about delivering value and service. There's a lot of competition in our environment. And, you know, although IMA is big globally and a multinational corporation, we're a relatively small staff. And my expectation is that every one of those staff is learning about technologies that could give IMA an advantage in better serving members. So be a first mover on the learning and the education. You don't necessarily have to be a first mover on the technology because it depends, right? It depends. And then we are going to talk, as I said, quite a bit about competencies in general and IMA's obligation to you as members, CMAs and candidates. So the kind of the executive summary, you know, if you had to use one slide to capture the next 40 or so minutes, automation has been around for a long time. Now we're in an age of smart machines that can think, learn, and adapt. So, you know, we're in what some would call the fourth industrial revolution. And when I was CFO in industry, I loved automation because it helps to create greater outcomes at lower cost, whether it's activity-based costing or, which, you know, obviously there's a technique and then the tool to automate, Six Sigma, Lean, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've been talking about fast close and automatic close and all this to kind of streamline the book close process, to streamline and make more efficient the customer order to cash process. These are good for business, and we as CFOs and CFO teams need to be part of that operational efficiency. After all, many of us as CFOs have the COO responsibility as well, right? The question is, what's different this time? What's different in this fourth industrial revolution? Well, very simple. The machines have gotten smarter. The machines can learn, they can adapt, they can think. But you know, when you step back and think about it, who enabled those machines, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive computing, to think and adapt and react? Who programmed, who wrote the code? I think it was a human, right, if I'm not mistaken. But make no mistake about it, things are different now because machines are smarter, they can think, adapt, and adjust. Relevance depends upon competency and talent. In my opinion, technology is critical, but it's secondary to people and process. If you don't have people, process, and governance wrapped around the technology, then you're not going to be able to harness the power of the technology in ways that other organizations will figure out. Of course, we must upskill. The two broad areas are strategy management and data, which I define as very, very broadly data governance, data architecture, data extraction, data cleansing, data analytics, data visualization, storytelling. I mean, kind of an ecosystem of data, right? Not suggesting that you all need to become PhDs in mathematics and statistics and become true data scientists. What I am suggesting is that you learn the language of these various domains so you can have conversations at minimum with data scientists, and the more of it you know yourself and can acquire yourself, the better. And then we must recognize what's at stake here. When you think about our great profession of finance and accounting, we all have a responsibility to enable and grow the profession. From the outside looking in, some would say, boy, it's kind of a dull profession. You know, all you do is financial accounting, GAAP and IFRS, and kind of boring people that you wouldn't want to invite to a party. I mean, I met a bunch of you outside. I'd invite you to my party. You know, I think you're fun-loving, you know, people that are sociable. Because we do have a certain stereotype, right, of accountants, do boring work. I've been in the profession off and on for 4 decades, and I think it's anything but boring. I think it's invigorating. I think it's exciting. I think we make a difference in terms of our commitment to ethics, internal controls, et cetera, et cetera. And I think as the CFO position and the team underneath the CFO has evolved over time, we not only help to protect value, we help to create future value. And now we are at the forefront of enabling technologies that involve some really, really exciting things. But make no mistake about it, when you think about the opportunity for automation and bots and chatbots and all the things we talked about, you know, our profession is susceptible. Our profession is vulnerable, especially in audit, especially in transaction processing. And so it is a call to action to make our profession relevant and influential more so than it ever was before. When you think about incoming students to our profession and they have options and opportunities like in the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you know, we've got to talk up our profession. It's not a boring, dull profession where we report on what happened and that's the end of the story. There's so much more to the story that we need to tell. And this age, this revolutionary age of digital transformation enables us to do that. But we have to change. It doesn't come easy. Nothing in business comes easy. Nothing. So we ask ourselves the very hard question, are we fit for purpose in a digital age, right? There's no doubt, as I said, new technologies eliminate some position, but we have the opportunity to create brand new ones. The key will be shifting from financial reporting and stewardship to becoming a business partner. And doesn't mean that financial reporting becomes less important. By no means. Financial reporting, whether it's IFRS or GAAP, I mean, you are reporting fairly and ethically on the financial condition of the enterprise. What could be more important to set the stage for future growth and sustainability? Internal controls. I'm a member of the COSO board. Some of you may be familiar with the COSO internal controls and risk management frameworks. Critically important. But other domains in accounting are as important. Those that help also to create value, the management accounting, the CMA part of what we're talking about. So collaboration is key to our future. Absolutely key to our future. If we thought we were interdisciplinary and cross-functional before, this digital era, this digital transformation has created even greater need for collaboration and cross-functional expertise. And does someone need to be expert in all of these areas? No. But do you need to be knowledgeable enough to have the conversation, to have the back and forth with colleagues, with consultants, with advisors, with others? Absolutely. So data scientist, I think I have a slide where I define data science more specifically because it's become a kind of one of those cool terms. Are you a data scientist? Oh, I'm a data scientist. What is that? What is a data scientist? As I said, I was one back in 1979. I didn't even know it, right? I didn't even know it at the time. I wish I knew as a data scientist. It's such a cool term, right? So other labels there, statisticians, right? Those that understand how to do forecasting and regression analysis, collinearity analysis, correlation analysis, et cetera, et cetera. Because when you think about the basics of a variance analysis as a finance team professional, actual budget variance, there is so much opportunity beyond the machine. Look, machines have been able to produce and spit out actual budget variance on income statement, balance sheet, funds flow, everything. We don't need humans to do it. What we need humans to do is give us insight and foresight. Tell me what the numbers don't say. Tell me what's behind the numbers. And all of those techniques to tell you what's behind the numbers and the meaning in the numbers and the correlations and the The data mining is what statistics and data mining is all about, right? That's why more and more around the world, accounting and finance curricula, at least as optional opportunities, are making available courseware in data science, statistics, mathematics, computer science, coding, and R, and Python, and Power BI. That's why it's becoming more integral part of the traditional accounting and finance curricula. The question is, are we keeping pace with the rate of change in technology? Is the rate of change in technology exceeding our capacity to absorb and enable it? And my concern is yes, which is why we need this call to action, which is why in the title of my talk here, call to action. So, data security professionals, roboticists, I can't even say that one, developing software, behavioral scientists. So again, this has become part of the new normal. If you were to go back 40 years ago, 30, 10 years ago, the people you would talk to are, normal people, right? Operations people and supply chain, folks in marketing and R&D. And now look how we've expanded our set of collaborators, right? Who would have ever thought it? But this is absolutely critical for us to succeed. We have to no longer speak just the language of finance accounting and the language of business, but the language of data, right? Data is key. So, we've done some work over the years. In fact, I made reference to this term, digital Darwinism, which is, again, just the rate of change that we're seeing. And actually, we did a pretty major study in 2013 where we talked about the technologies that were reshaping the business. And, for the most part, these are still the technologies today, right, when you think about it. And look, different technologies have different maturities, different ups and downs. How many of you are familiar with Gartner, the big IT consulting firm? It's a global firm, Gartner, G-A-R-T-N-E-R, right? A few of you are. So they have their maturity curves, and they've had blockchain on what they call the trough of disillusionment because of lack of use cases. But that has picked up. The use cases for blockchain and payment systems and insurance and finance have picked up. So, RPA, robotics process automation, which is essentially emulating keystrokes, from a spreadsheet, is further along because it's a pretty basic technology. Chatbots are around, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these technologies have to be understood individually in terms of specific outcomes that they can enable. We talked about the modern CFO team evolving from accountant to business partner to strategic enabler, right? And this has been an evolution, at least in the United States, that's occurred over the last about the last 3 or 4 decades. And it's evolved in different countries, different parts of the world, from accountant, where your primary, if not exclusive responsibility as CFO was to file the statutory reports, good internal controls, be a good steward, safeguarding of assets. Now I could tell you in most of the 140 countries that, IMA is membership, that is the table stakes. That is the minimum expectation. The expectation is that you are in that business partnering, that forward-looking, analytical skills, enabling the business success. You're at the strategy table more and more. And then the strategic enabler is even beyond business partner to take the whole talent pool, which could include bots and artificial intelligence and IPA and all these other things. So that's the expectation, and that's also the opportunity. So we all know the value chain is going digital. There's many, many predictions for finance. This one happens to come from the Wall Street Journal article and Deloitte. And some of these things are happening at different paces. You've heard about many of these things, but touchless transaction processing, where basically you don't need humans, and this also applies to the audit function. enabled by blockchain and other forms of automation like robotics process automation. Finance in terms of, hey, if the machines are going to take over a lot of what I was doing, I need you to raise your game. Don't just tell me the variance is XYZ in the revenue line. Tell me what's behind the variance. Tell me what my competitors are doing. Tell me how sustainable that variance is. Tell me about correlations underneath the data that can help me grow the top line. Tell me, tell me, tell me. More insight, more foresight enabled by analytics. And if that means acquiring those skills, if that means absorbing those skills, whatever it means, IMA absolutely has an obligation and commitment to be part of that learning and growth. Academia absolutely has a major, major role as part of this ecosystem. Finance goes real time. You know, finance, we all love schedules. I remember when I got my very first book close job at AT&T, because they said if you want to become CFO of any unit, you need to have book close jobs and those sorts of positions. And I remember getting out a calendar and saying, okay, what days of the month, do I basically need to be in the office all night? And it turned out like every day of the week, between book close, pre-close, post-close, there were no days left. All 22 business days were full. So, we're very used to schedules and still are. IMA closes its books in 3 days. We have entities around the world, so we close our books in 3 days. So we're very, very used to schedules, and you'll get your reports on the 5th workday and the 9th workday and the 12th workday. But what about real time, right? And of course, it's not like we're getting there. Many, many organizations have real-time access to leading indicators like sales volumes right on your device, where at any point in time you could check on sales volumes in a particular region and how it's trending and how it's not trending, et cetera, et cetera. But going real time is really the direction. And then a combination of humans, robots, and algorithms do the work. There's a great book out called The Algorithmic Leader by Mike Walsh. And it talks about the world of algorithms and algorithmic bias and more. So we're going to see a video here. Do I just click on this? Oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to click. So it's a video here. Don't get nervous. Don't get scared. I'll make it all good when it's over. Which could be sooner than we think.
Every human used to have to hunt or gather to survive, but humans are smart, we're lazy, so we need tools to make our work easier. From sticks to plows to tractors, we've gone from everyone needing to make food to modern agriculture with almost no one needing to make food. And yet we still have abundance. Of course, it's not just farming, it's everything. We've spent the last several thousand years building tools to reduce physical labor of all kinds. These are mechanical muscles, stronger, more reliable, and more tireless than human muscles ever could be. And that's a good thing. Replacing human labor with mechanical muscle frees people to specialize, and that leaves everyone better off, even those still doing physical labor. This is how economies grow and standards of living rise. Some people have specialized to be programmers and engineers whose job is to build mechanical minds. Just as mechanical muscles make human labor less in demand, so are mechanical minds making human brain labor less in demand. This is an economic revolution. You may think we've been here before, but we haven't. This time is different. When you think of automation, you probably think of this: giant, custom-built, expensive, efficient, but really dumb robots lying to the world in their own work. They were a scary kind of automation, but they haven't taken over the world because they're only cost-effective in narrow situations. But they're the old kind of automation. This is the new kind. Meet Baxter. Unlike these things, which require skilled operators and technicians and millions of of dollars, Baxter has vision and can learn what you want him to do by watching you do it. And he costs less than the average annual salary of a human worker. Unlike his older brothers, he isn't pre-programmed for one specific job. He can do whatever work is within the reach of his arms. Baxter is what might be thought of as a general-purpose robot, and general purpose is a big deal. There is this notion that just as mechanical muscle allows us to move into thinking jobs, that mechanical mind will allow us to move into creative work. But even if we assume the human mind is magically creative, if not, but just for the sake of argument, artistic creativity isn't what the majority of jobs depend on. The number of writers and poets and directors and actors and artists who actually make a living doing their work is a tiny portion of the labor force. And given that these are professions dependent on popularity, they'll always be a very small portion of the population. There can't be such a thing as a poem and painting-based economy. Oh, by the way, this music in the background that you're listening to, it was written by a bot. Her name is Emily Howell, and she can write an infinite amount of new music all day for free. And people can't tell the difference between her and human composers when put to a blind test. Talking about artificial creativity gets weird fast. What does that even mean? But nonetheless, it's a developing field. People used to think that playing chess was uniquely creative human skill that machines could never do, right up until the point they beat the best of us. And so it will go for all human talents. Right. This may have been a lot to take in, and you might want to reject it. It's easy to be cynical at the endless and idiotic predictions of futures that never are. So that's why it's important to emphasize again that this stuff isn't science fiction. The robots are here right now. There's this terrifying amount of working automation in labs and warehouses around the world. We have been through economic revolutions before, but the robot revolution is different. Horses aren't unemployed now because they got lazy as a species. They're unemployable. There's little work that a horse can do to pay for its housing and hay. And many bright, perfectly capable humans will find themselves the new horse, unemployable through no fault of their own. But if you still think new jobs will save us, here's one final point to consider. The U.S. Census in 1776 tracked only a few kinds of jobs. Now there are hundreds of kinds of jobs, but the new ones are not a significant part of the labor force. Here's the list of jobs ranked by the number of people who perform them. It's a sobering list with the transportation industry at the top. Continuing downward, all of this work existed in some form 100 years ago, and almost all of them are easy targets for automation. Only when we get to number 33 on the list is there finally something new. Don't think that every barista or white-collar worker need lose their job before things are a problem. The unemployment rate during the Great Depression was 25%. The list above is 45% of the workforce. Just what we talked about today, the stuff that already works, can push us over that number pretty soon. And given that even in our modern technological wonderland, new kinds of work aren't a significant portion of the economy, this is a big problem. This video isn't about how automation is bad, rather that automation is inevitable. It's a tool to produce abundance for little effort. We need to start thinking now about what to do when large sections of the population are unemployable through no fault of their own. What to do in the future where, for most jobs, humans need not apply.
So, as we queue up the next video, we don't want to be the horse that's unemployable through no fault of its own, okay? And this is just a video that says what's different. It talks about, the hypothesis that unless we change and act, then there will be a net, long-term, there will be a net loss in actual jobs, either displaced or replaced. So that is kind of what we call in the US a doom and gloom story, a glass half empty story. We have one now is more of, okay, what do we do about it? What's the call to action here? So if we could run this one. Maybe not. Well, I'll do the video. I'll try to pretend to be the video. So, look, at the end of the day, there are all of these technologies out there, and the opportunity is pretty much what I've said before. To work with academia, to work with corporates, to work with training companies, to work with organizations like IMA, to upskill in very, very specific areas. I've already talked about strategy management. And by the way, one of the reasons, IMA has exactly,
Digital transformation opens the door for many opportunities within finance. Today, finance is asked to essentially set the course for the years to come. Let's take a closer look at two possible scenarios for the future. We're in the year 2022. Finance as a division has significantly shrunk. In many areas, standardization and automation have taken place. Many processes have been automated efficiently through robotics. Finance consists of a small team of specialists for topics like IFRS, taxes, risk management, compliance, regulation, and financing mechanisms. Processing of financial statements is now fully automated. The operational responsibility for the closing process is now owned by IT. Business decisions are primarily taken based on information derived from operational functions. Marketing and sales, as well as technology, invested early in big data analytics and are now jointly leading the Center for Analytics. Finance has lost its leading role and is no longer involved in important decision-making. Instead, it focuses on contributing special expertise where needed. The responsibility of planning and forecasting has shifted completely towards operations. Early on, they set up big database prediction models within their divisions. The role of finance is limited to planning of financial mechanisms, taxes, as well as currency and consolidation effects. Finance has become a mere center of excellence that is limited to providing highly specialized financial expertise upon request. 2017. Finance missed the opportunity to plan and shape new digital trends and actively build a future vision for themselves. Finance was overrun by digitalization and lost its role of being part of the strategic development of the entire organization. 2017. Finance decided to become a leading pioneer of digitalization. Finance analyzed digital trends for themselves and developed a target and vision for the future. The goal was to act, not react, and develop a common vision. Upon this foundation, new opportunities were identified, and as a result, a newly formed roadmap has been developed to define specific actions for the years to come. An interdisciplinary team coordinates analytical topics and combines deep business competence with technical know-how. Finance was the driver for building the Center for Analytics. Information from various sources are combined in real time. The planning and forecasting process has been automated to the highest degree possible with modern statistical methods and big data. The forecast preparation is done by a push of a button, and finance is able to focus on the development of new insights. From day one, all finance executives have been involved in the development of the target vision. Finance now combines strategic competence with in-depth business know-how. New skills in the area of data modeling and analytics have been built up and are used successfully. Finance focuses on cross-functional and interdisciplinary cooperation. 2022. Standard processes have been fully automated. Finance has gained time and capacity to consider and work with analytical-related questions. Finance is the co-pilot in the context of strategic development and appreciated as a business partner for operational functions. Now, it's time to define your future in a digital world.
Okay, so you saw two different scenarios, two different worlds. And look, this is reality. We could either choose to be overrun and overwhelmed by technology or to seize the opportunity to create a greater organization with our enhanced tool set and skill set, right? That's the choice. And look, I'm not speaking as a generalist or a theorist. I've been in the profession off and on for 4 decades. Been through, I guess, all at least a couple of industrial revolutions. So, this is reality, the reality of what's happening in terms of automation and the rate of change. And again, the message is we must rapidly upskill and commit to change throughout the entire accounting ecosystem, including and especially academia. Because look at these disruptive technologies. I'm not going to have time to cover every one of them, but it's overwhelming, right? It's absolutely overwhelming. Intelligent process automation is, you may have heard that term, is robotics process automation, but augmented by natural language processing, speech recognition, et cetera, et cetera. So there is just so much out there that can automate virtually any business process. And I actually encourage you to learn more about intelligent process automation, because intelligent process automation actually goes down to event logs and process logs to define and document the as-is process so that you can automate and create the desired business process. There is just so much out there from an automation perspective for us to harness the value of all this automation. But we have to know how to ask the right questions, how to interpret the answers, how to develop further thinking and learning for our organizations. So there are so many automation hotspots that are, and this is like vulnerability, right? This is where standard journal entries, bank reconciliations, intercompany reconciliations, the more routine, repetitive, transaction-oriented tasks are by definition going to be most vulnerable, if you want to use that term, to automation opportunities. But even FP&A, financial planning and analysis, et cetera, is vulnerable. And the theory is, if we have this call to action in mind, that we could add even greater insight and greater foresight, get the real meaning behind the numbers and the analysis. So I have a few use cases here. I'm going to focus on one just in the interest of time. The Doha chapter and you as attendees can certainly have access to this, this package. Okay, so how many of you have, so there's new language and new terminology. How many of you are familiar with data lake? Anybody know what a data lake is? So I saw a couple hands. So how many people know the term database or data warehouse, right? Many, many more people, right? It's just like another language test. How many of you use Excel? How many of you use R? R, right? So there's new language, new skills, new opportunities. R, by the way, is a non-commercial analytics software that has some coding features that are advanced relative to Excel, but Excel is still very, very powerful. In fact, Excel is developing a lot of data mining and advanced analytical capabilities that you really should keep on top of, in addition to exploring other tools like R, like Power BI, like Python, like Tableau. There is so much out there for us to acquire as humans, but now it's come home in the finance and accounting profession where it's almost become a must for our future relevance and influence. So Aetna, which is the big US-based insurer, they wanted to better understand their customer needs at a detailed level. Their auditors had to do a lot of multiple transaction processing and many, many different platforms. So a data lake is essentially a data warehouse for structured and unstructured data. When you think about the world of big data, I never quite understood why it was called big data. We've always had a lot of data, but some of it is structured, and those of you who know XBRL, a lot of it's unstructured. Customer feedback, social media, these are all forms of data in addition to potentially hundreds of millions of records on sales volumes. That's structured data. So a data lake combines structured and unstructured data in kind of a common language and common accessibility. Obviously, in 30 seconds, I can't do it justice. But Aetna had two broad business needs. One, We want to be able to offer more insight to our CFO, our CEO, our business leaders, our board, and our investors. And then relatedly, they wanted to do a bit more efficient job at working with their auditors so the auditors weren't testing and checking multiple platforms. So they work with the data science team. Now, this is the finance team working with the data science team. Look, in a big company, AT&T, Aetna, Qatar Gas, et cetera, you might be able to have a data science team. And at minimum, as finance and accounting team professionals, we have to, as I said earlier, know enough to ask the right questions and interpret the answers. It's like working with IT in the old days on an ERP installation, but this is advanced, right? So even if you have the funding for a data science team, you have to know some of the language, some of the intricacies of data science. And it might be a smaller organization where someone says, hey, you know, we've just eliminated 3 FTEs because we implemented robotics process automation. If you have skills in data science, guess what? You will have not only retain your job, but have a better job if you have the skills and the adaptability to acquire new skills. So in this case, they developed a finance data repository. It brought together the company's structured and unstructured data. And I define data lake there, different schemas, can be reconfigured, et cetera, et cetera. It's a whole body of knowledge that, again, I can't do justice to in 30 seconds. But it's a real case. The outcome is they were able to combine unstructured demographic, socioeconomic demographic data with structured data to answer questions. Which markets should I be? Which products and services, simulation, scenario analysis, and more. This stuff is not made up, it's real. It's real. And also finance was able to provide their auditors with audit evidence much faster to kind of streamline that whole process. So there's a lot of use cases out there and they're growing every time you blink, especially in blockchain. Blockchain is one that over the last 2 years has really, really increased in terms of use cases. So I've already alluded to many of the competencies. Let's kind of hone in more specifically on the competency side. I'm actually going to skip this video in the interest of time. I promised I would define data science. At a very, very high level, data science consists of, have you been here the whole time? No, just kidding. 15 minutes, okay, just kidding. So data science is a body of knowledge. It consists of 3 broad domains from the bottom up. Business domain. You know, whether you're a mathematician, a statistician, a data scientist, an FP&A professional, business domain. What is the business problem? You know, the old saying, don't lose the forest for the trees. Understand the business context. Understand the business problem. Don't just be an order taker. When you're an analyst or a data scientist, you just don't, oh, you want an analysis on X, Y? Ask some question. Probe back, say, you know what? If we did the analysis a different way, if we did a multiple regression or a multivariate analysis, we might be able to get more insights on customer usage patterns. You know, business domain, understanding the nature of the business. Then we work our way up and it's about data and data applications, tools, coding, you know, computer science. This is life beyond Excel. Although Excel, my bet is that all of us, including me around this room, are mining about 30 to 50% of the power of Excel. Excel is growing in its analytical capabilities. Learn it. Learn it. Data governance, data lifecycle, et cetera, et cetera. And then I wrote there, should finance and accounting professionals become coders? Look at that footnote below. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects by 2020 there will be a significant shortage of computer scientists. So again, I'm not suggesting that every one of us becomes statisticians and computer scientists. I'm just telling you the facts. These are skills that are in demand that will enrich our jobs, right? So may not necessarily mean an advanced degree, but it means some knowledge, some learning. And then we move up to statistics, the foundational knowledge of statistics at some level. You know, there's courses in business statistics that I've taught that are not mathematical statistics. They're business statistics. You can learn it, you can achieve it, you can understand it. You don't need to know the underlying gory mathematics, but you understand the applications layer, the applications level. I strongly encourage it. So, competing on analytics, the new science of winning. This is one of my favorite books. The book is okay, but I love the title, right? The notion that the way we win in the market is not just on market-facing products and services and apps, but on analytics, understanding our customers to a level that we could never possibly know before. Data mining, the ability to correlate our sales volumes in our various multi-platform databases to come up with new insights, new sales leads, new markets that we would not have otherwise have known about through the power of business intelligence and data mining. This is not made up stuff. This is real stuff. I did data mining in AT&T in the early and mid 1990s. Right? So a lot of the stuff is out there. It just needs to be refined and made real, made so we can understand it. 2007, competing on analytics, the new science of winning. Analytics is not just technology, it's human and organization. Different type, everybody says, oh, we do analytics today. Well, I would argue that the analytics are, if we do the analytics, make sure I don't fall off the stage here, it's often at the descriptive level and the diagnostic level. If you work your way up, descriptive statistics is what happened. Very important, what happened. Diagnostic statistics is why did it happen. And very, very important, but they're the routine. What happened and why did it happen? Getting up to diagnostic. Where we really need to add the insight and the foresight and the analytical horsepower is predictive. Why did it happen? And prescriptive. What will happen? Those are the new jobs. That's the new capabilities. That's why I'm talking so much about data science and data analytics. Machines have essentially replaced those lower 2 or 3 layers. And what's left for us is the most important, the relationship management, the strategy, and more. So there are methods and thoughts on how to develop data science in-house, right? And we talk a lot about the distinct roles for a robust data analytics capability. At the enterprise level, data storytellers, the fourth one down. More and more CFOs, controllers, all of us have become storytellers. It's not fiction, right? It's not made up stories. It's telling a story, letting the data breathe. Talking about how growth can be achieved, not just a boring rendition or repetition of the numbers. So we have a role. We've developed a competency framework that's outside, and you've seen it all. What's interesting about this competency framework is, which basically organizes the entire management accounting body of knowledge, and then inside each of those 6 domains, there's training, there's education, there's self-assessment, there's gaps, and there's filling those gaps with training and education. What you notice about our competency framework is you don't even barely see the word accounting, and that's almost the point. In the upper left corner, strategy, performance, and planning. Moving around, reporting and control. Now that's probably the most traditional accounting responsibility. Business acumen and operations, lean, supply chain, Six Sigma, and more. Technology and analytics, which is a brand new domain covering all the things I've talked about. And then anchored by professional ethics and values, critically important. It's what makes our profession so great. And then leadership, being a champion, soft skills of influencing and mentoring and guiding, et cetera, et cetera. And then inside each of those domains are specific skills, tools, training, webinars, and more. And there's an example. There's a description of the domain, and there are the specific competencies. For those in academia, we have all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, laid out. That's why We tested this competency framework from the market and then rolled it out. It's been inculcated into the new CMA exam coming out in January. I'm not going to list those all. So in January, there's an updated CMA exam. It's still 2 parts, but it has a whole new domain in technology and analytics to stay fresh, to stay current, to do our part between the competency framework, webinars, and more, to be part of the solution, to be part of this call to action for increased, it really is a race for relevance. Right, other resources, we have a new podcast series. I'm very, very excited, that third bullet. We are developing and we'll be rolling out a new foundational certificate program in data analytics and visualization, either December or January. I've been part of the team. IMA is hiring its first ever director of data analytics. We've created a whole new position and a whole new team because we're that serious about applying technology and analytics, not only in terms of how we do business and better serve you, but to help enhance and advance your education. I talked about strategy management and the fact that our one and only, I think I forgot to finish this sentence, our one and only advanced credential that sits on top of the CMA is called CSCA, Certified in Strategy and Competitive Analysis. So you have to be a CMA in order to get access to the CSCA. And when you think about all the specialty certifications we could have selected risk management, internal controls, costing, the list, EPM, enterprise performance. We chose strategy management because increasingly as you advance in your career in finance and accounting, you're going to get more involved in strategy. So that's why we have this great credential. I became a CSCA a couple of years ago. So we're going to show this last video and then one more slide and we're done. I'm available all day for questions, thoughts, ideas. You all know where to reach me and how to reach me as members. I respond to my email very quickly, even in the middle of the night, sometimes when I'm traveling. But first thing is on this ad campaign. So this is year 4 of our ad campaign. You know, the biggest complaint or issue I got from members over the years is, we never heard about the CMA. How come CMA isn't more known? What can you do to create more knowledge and awareness of the CMA? So we said, well, one way to do it is through great chapters like the Doha chapter and the other 300 chapters around the world, kind of our ground game, working with academics. But the other way is to do an ad campaign, right? And so we are in year 4 of an ad campaign that includes TV, print, and digital. And this is an early look at the ads, an ad that's going to be rolling out starting Monday. And you're going to be seeing a lot more about the CMA program. Oh, yep, sorry. This is a process that is in year 4 we're very, very excited about. And I heard a few chuckles out there. So the last slide, the call to action, is the call to action, relevance gained or relevance lost in a digital age. The race for relevance. Are we going to be more relevant or is the technology going to be more relevant in 5, 10, 20 years, right? That's the ultimate question. So many, many stakeholders have a role in answering and addressing this question. For individuals, it's adopting and adapting to skills in AI, robotics, intelligent process automation, strategy management, and more. Upskill. I don't care if you're a new entrant to the profession or a mid-career professional with a lot of runway left in your career. I earned all 3 of my professional certifications after the age of 50, right? I know I'm dating myself, and I'm learning every day, right, about a new technology. It's just more than the human mind can absorb. Academia, absolutely critical role for academia around the world, right? To raise the stakes in aligning what's taught versus what accounts do. We all know about silos. We know about silos in business, silos in academia. There's the accounting department and the finance department and the IT. We've got to mimic the way business needs to be run, which is interdisciplinary, cross-functional. So yes, academia must move faster and faster and faster at infusing data analytics, data visualization, data storytelling, statistics, mathematics, computer science, coding into its curricula, right? I know that's easier said than done, but it's an absolute necessity in this race for relevance. Companies, data analytics, the new science, or competing on analytics, the new science of winning. You know, if organizations don't fund data science and take it seriously, then it's going to go nowhere, right? We're taking it seriously. Corporations must embrace new data analytics. It's not just about the analytics and the technology, it's about the people and processes around it. That's what counts, that's what matters, that's what will make a difference. And then finally, accounting organizations like ours and ACCA and IIA and others, we have to be part of the solution. We just can't talk, we have to act. And so with that, thank you for your time. I am right on time. Thank you.